is Notsam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Here on the podcast, somebody who, look, I mean, he's an accomplished musician, has plenty of credits, but I always do the wrestling fan test, the silent, quiet wrestling fan test, where like you drop a couple questions in and I judge whether or not you can talk to this person, like whether or not this is going to be like one of your wrestling friends or just like, oh, okay, they pretend that they like wrestling, but they don't know what they're talking about. And Alex Levine passes the test with flying colors, by the way. He's been in a bunch of bands, probably most famously Gaslight Anthem. He's coming out with new stuff now. But most importantly, he's a big old wrestling fan. So welcome, Alex, man. How are you?
Thanks for the intro, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. More importantly in my life, I'm a freaking wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. Beyond anything else, above and beyond anything else, man. Wrestling has been my it's been my chi, my center. You know,
yeah.
It's my go-to when I'm down, when I'm happy, everything in between, man. And I always said, I was like, if there was something called like a wrestling archivist, I remember saying this in high school. I was like, I want that job above and beyond anything else.
Well, dude,
I just want that.
Yeah, I don't know what you did, getting into this music nonsense, because that became like when they right before I think they launched the network, when like WWE went digital, because they used to have this like big, it was literally a tape library. Like it was where they shot the episodes of like WWF Mania back in the day. Like it was just rooms full of racks of tapes. And at some point, like 15 years ago or so, they hired a bunch of people, and the whole job, and I've talked to people whose job this was, the entire job was to go through every tape and log everything that happens on them. So it's like not just every match that happens, but like go through these random tapes. And it was like every tape. It wasn't just WWE stuff. It was like the WCW tape library, the ECW tape library. It was everything. And it's like, okay, you not only are logging, all right, it's Mr. Perfect versus Macho Man or whatever. You're logging the entrance, you're logging who's with them, you're logging the moves, because like they created this database. So it's like, we need a Randy Savage clothesline. And so you could type in Randy Savage clothesline, and somebody has manually looked at these tapes and like written down at 0:59:20, Randy Savage clothesline. And you're like, there it is. So you could have had that job.
It's incredible. It's incredible, man. I mean, I would be on the road, probably around that point. I would be on the road, and, we'd be having a few drinks late at night on the bus, and say there was somebody new on the bus. Mm-hmm. They would play this game with me of just trying to stump me. And the funny thing, you've talked to so many non-wrestling fans or fans of wrestling when they were kids, and they always bring up like, oh yeah, Junkyard Dog, yeah, Andre the Giant, man, and remember when Hulk Hogan, just very obvious things, and I would just kind of bypass that. I'm like, give me something gnarly, give me something crazy, give me the finish on the second match of SummerSlam 91. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Or like, let's sit down and talk about, like, have you ever noticed that Bret Hart is a better opening match pay-per-view wrestler than anybody else? And you sit there and you go, you're right. And then you just start talking about every match that Bret Hart had that opened a pay-per-view. Or like my argument, which is like talking about Bret Hart in SummerSlam. It's like people talk about Bret Hart's streak at SummerSlam, and they go, well, 1990 was the Hart Foundation and Demolition. That was an incredible match. 91 was Perfect versus Bret. It literally changed wrestling. 92 was Bulldog versus Bret. It changed wrestling again. And people act like that's where the streak ends. But I go, right. People don't take, and I talked about this on the show on the network, people don't take Doink seriously. But Doink in 1993 was as good as it gets. And if you go to SummerSlam 93, people go like, oh, it's disrespect to Bret. He's wrestling Doink at SummerSlam 93. And I'm like, nope. You go watch Doink versus Bret Hart, SummerSlam 93, and you will find that it matches. It goes right along. I include it. I don't skip. It goes 92 Bulldog, 93 Doink, 94 Owen in the cage. But 93 Bret versus Doink is on the list, and nobody puts it on the list.
Dude, 100%. I mean, first of all, Doink, the original Doink, as we know, was an accomplished wrestler.
Incredible.
The gimmick is what it is, but he was a fucking incredible wrestler.
Yeah, and he was good enough that that's the other thing about the gimmick. Like, the gimmick didn't get cheesy until Matt Bourne left. Like, the original Doink gimmick was like one of those things where it should have been cheesy. And when you say a wrestling clown, like, the phrase is cheesy. But when you actually look at him, it's like he's doing better than Tim Curry in it. Like, he's incredible.
He was the real life Pennywise, especially at that point in professional wrestling, where you had these like over the top comical gimmicks. He took that and ran with it, man. Like, it could have been like Papa Shango could have been that, right? You look at something like Papa Shango and you're like, okay, I get it. You know, I get it. And I was 7, 8 years old when it happened. So I was terrified. But,
me too. Yeah.
You know?
But you get older and you're like, oh, like when you're watching Randy Orton spit up oil on Raw now, you're like, oh, like if I was in my 30s watching WWE then, I would have felt the same way about the Warriors spitting up. Like, I'd be like, what is this?
What is this garbage? Exactly. But Matt Bourne, the way he pulled that off, man, that was that was real storytelling, man. You get into WrestleMania 9, Crush.
Yeah.
Dude, that build up in the beginning, I mean, the first 3 months of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
He was a huge part of that.
Huge part. He was like in the audience, and then he would show up, and he knocked out Crush with his severed arm, and it gave him a concussion. Crush has been just beaten senselessly with the severed arm. I was like, this is great. This is great. Amazing. Yeah.
It was the loaded arm too.
Yeah. It was loaded. It wasn't just a fake cast. That's right. It was loaded. But everything in that era was loaded. Like, you would just hit somebody with whatever you could find backstage and be like, just tell them it's loaded. Like, IRS's briefcase was never just a Halliburton. It was like, no, there's bricks in there, man. It hurts way worse.
There's too many tax papers in there.
Yeah.
Everybody's W-9s are in there.
So when you're on the road, right, with your band, and obviously, like, after a show or before a show, like during the day, whatever, like, I would imagine you need to take those moments of like, I just need to chill. I need my personal time where I can just get my mind off everything and just focus on something that I like. And like, I'm sure you're the same way that I am. That means finding some weird old obscure wrestling and putting it on and just enjoying yourself, and the rest of the world drifts away. But what does the rest of your band think when they're like, oh no, Alex is watching wrestling again?
I mean, at the end of the day, we've been in a band together, Gaslight.
Mm-hmm.
We're going on like 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, it was super weird. You know, it's not normal, right? Like,
right.
The way people like me and you think to the outside world, it's not normal, right? So,
right.
So, when certain things happened early on, you know, they would kind of like think it's funny and whatnot, and then they start realizing, like, I'm not messing around. Like, this brings real joy to my life. Yeah. And and dude, I mean, throughout my career, there would be times where you know, my tour manager would show up and he's like, yeah, man, there's a pro wrestler that's here and they want to come backstage, meet you guys. And they would just all run up to me. They're like, hey man, this guy like Punk, CM Punk or something's here. I don't know. You know? And you're like, what? I do a backflip. Like, glad I'm back here.
It's clobbering time.
And you know, throughout my career, I've been able to like create. Oh wait, hold on. That is my daughter. ripping the door down right now.
I live in the same world that you live in. Trust me. I knew exactly what that noise was even before you told me what it was. I was like, I've been there.
Let's go see what you're doing.
Let's go see. Yeah, we need to. We can't have Daddy just in here talking about wrestling.
Hey, Daddy is talking about wrestling. Say hi.
Hey, how are you?
Say hi, baby. Okay. Yeah, Daddy will be downstairs soon, okay? All right.
Okay. I love that your daughter's wearing a princess dress and like living in this fantasy world, because she doesn't like, she looks at you like you're an adult and you're the authority figure and everything, but like you're escaping into your room full of your wrestling toys and your everything. And it's like, I don't know if you understand, but we're living in the same world. Like, this is my princess dress, right? This is my fantasy world. Like my Bret Hart bone crunching action figure right behind me. Like, just because it's in the box doesn't mean that we're any different. Like,
exactly. And the fact that I just said, hey, baby, Daddy's just talking about wrestling. I'll be down in a few minutes.
But you know what? That's healthier than the alternative to be like, Daddy's at work, honey. Don't disturb Daddy while he's at work. It's like, no, let's be honest. Daddy's talking about wrestling, and she doesn't even look at you like, she doesn't go, what? What are you talking about?
What?
She's like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's
okay, Dad.
That's it.
Is Rey Mysterio in here?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with my 4-year-old, but it's reversed. I'm sitting there like, we're going through YouTube trying to figure out what he wants to watch. And he loves like Ryan's Toys review. And Braun Strowman was on there with him. And I was like, and I try to like educate him on wrestling. And I'm like, do you want to watch this, Ryan, with Braun Strowman? And he went, nah. And he went, that's Braun Strowman? I was like, yeah. And then he goes, how did he get to meet Ryan? I was like, no.
It's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, he's way more impressed that Braun Strowman somehow figured out how to meet somebody as cool as Ryan than the other way around. And I'm like, okay, all right, baby steps. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Exactly. But still, I mean, at this point, we're talking about, again, grown men.
Exactly.
Excited.
Yeah,
but again,
I mean,
it's obsession.
And it's really interesting too, because like, I'll get like toys, like when I buy my wrestling toys. First of all, and I feel like this is actually very healthy and like good of me. Like, I'll go to Target with my son, and it'll be, the rule: if Daddy gets a toy, he goes, I get a toy. And so we like go in the wrestling aisle, and I'm like, oh, we got some new elites here. Let me pick these up. And then my son is like, yeah, because that means we get to go in the Hot Wheels aisle, and he gets to pick out some toys for himself. But it's like, he also knows, like, when I bring home wrestling toys, he's not sitting there going, oh, these are for me, right? Like, he knows just instinctively, and maybe it's just because on his 4 years on this earth, that's the way it's always been. He's like he looks at, like, those are Daddy's toys. Like, those are clearly for Daddy, and they're not for, like, he doesn't even attempt to think that they might be for him. He just looks at wrestling figures and goes, oh yeah, those are Dad's. I get the Hot Wheels, he gets the wrestling toys. That's the way this works.
See, my dad was awesome, man. Growing up, my dad got me into pro wrestling, actually. Probably around the time I was 4 or 5. He got me and my younger sister into it. And my dad's into it now. We've gone to Extreme Rules together, WrestleManias and whatnot. As I was getting older, he would buy me 2 of the same. He would say, okay, one's for the box and one's to play with.
You had the,
dude,
that's,
my dad,
dude,
badass,
that's
man.
awesome. That's
check it out. I've wanted to show you this for a while.
Okay, we're going back on Alex's shelf here. He's moving the autographed 8x10 Steiner Brothers photo.
Look at what my pops got me years ago.
So that's
It's
like,
French Canadian.
That's Hasbro Series 1, Bret Hart on a French card, MOC. So that's not one of these things that like you become a rock star and you spend your money rebuying the toys that you missed. Like that, when it came out, your dad was like, we'll get one Bret Hart for you to play with and one to keep in the box?
Right.
Whoa, that's
100%.
that's
So,
amazing.
dude, I've had this 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
That-
Easy 25 years, probably longer.
That's so
92.
cool.
Yeah, 92. So, geez, yeah. Almost 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, like, I started buying. Wait, is it 30 years?
30 years. Yeah.
30 years. That's crazy. Neither one of us want to think in those terms, right? Like we wish it was 20 years still, but it's not. It's 30 years. Yeah, we're way older. Like we have kids. Like yeah. Because I was with you. You were like 92. That's 20 years ago, right? And I'm like, yep, yes, it is.
But I've been married for 10 years. I'm not talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Like I got this Bret Hart Hasbro 10 years ago, and then I married my wife. Like what? Yeah, I started buying 2 of each, and I don't do that anymore. There's just so many figures now. Like if it's something really good, I might keep something in the box or whatever. But like when Jax first came out with Bone Crunchers, I bought the first like few series. I bought them 2 of each before they started releasing like new figures every 2 weeks. It's just not financially possible or space wise. Like you need storage lockers to store all these things. But but like I did, and so I was probably like 12 or 13 or something like that when I started doing it. My dad was like, he thought it was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard in his life. He was, what are you talking about? And I was like, no, man. They're going to go up in value. Now, Bone Crunchers are only now just starting to kind of go up in value. They're sort of starting to get there. But, like, that has been a long-term investment for sure.
So my dad was, he was all about, G.I. Joe in the 70s. He was all about G.I. Joes and comic books. So my dad has, I don't even know the kind. And my dad's a blue collar dude. He's been a mechanic his whole life, just retired. I honestly don't even know how much money he has value wise in just toys. It's it's insane.
Is he ever going to sell them, or is it one of those things where it's like, no, this doesn't get touched?
No. And it's something that I hope to like pass on to my kids, because my dad like it's not even up for debate. He knows everything goes to me,
right?
And hopefully everything will just go to my kids, and hopefully one of them will become psychotic about it.
That's so awesome. That's generational wealth. Like that's what people do with art. You know what I mean? Like they buy a painting, or Bitcoin or whatever. Yeah. It's generational wealth, except in toys. That's so cool. That's now you're motivating me. Now I want to convince my son. Oh, I'm going to raise my son to value this stuff. Like, so like we went to a store and I found like I was buying them Micro Machines, and they had a Chase Micro Machine. I don't know. Like I didn't even know these things existed, but one of the Micro Machines was like, it was silver. So it was a Chase. Like it was a rare one. And so I was like, all right, buddy, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to buy you a regular one, and we're going to open this up. And then I'm going to bring this, and we're going to buy this one too, but we're going to keep it in the box. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, we're in the car. And he's like, can I have the silver bus? And I'm like, no, buddy. We're keeping it in the box. Like and I got home and he goes to my mom and he's like, Mom, can you tell Dad to give me the silver bus? And she's like, and then like, when you're looking at your wife, like you can't explain to her, no, I'm trying to teach him a lesson. We're keeping this Micro Machine MOC. And I was like, all right, we're going to open up this. Here's your silver bus. Yeah.
Because that's a different story when you're talking about trying to bring your wife into the sanity of this. Logically, none of this makes sense.
Yeah, because like you're a cool rock star guy. You're all tatted up. You know what I mean? Like you're like, yeah, like women find me attractive, right? But then when you start these relationships, you have to be like, all right, look, there's a side of me that you may not find as attractive. I'm actually a complete nerd. This is all a facade. Like I'm a complete geek. And I don't know if you knew this going in, but you have to be okay with it because it's never going to change. And that's the other thing. Like it's not, this isn't up for debate. Like I'll do anything for you. I love you. I'll never change this for you.
Right.
This is
the
who I am.
First week of October every year, I will be going to Comic-Con. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's what's gonna happen. So like,
It's just part of the deal.
yeah, how do you get past that hurdle, whether it was with your wife or whoever, where it's like, okay, I got to break the news to this person that thinks I'm like a cool rock star guy, that yes, part of me is a cool rock star guy, but the other part of me is a complete wrestling geek who like wants to go to indie shows on the weekends, and that's who I am.
I think there's this there's like this endearing thing about humans that not to get too deep, but
Yeah.
for people that just kind of like know who they are,
Yes.
I think that's just, I like, dude, I just don't care. There's only a few things I'm good at and a few things that I care about.
Mhm.
And it's what it is. I care about music. I care about wrestling,
Mhm.
my children, my family, my friends. And I really enjoy cutting hair, you know, like
That's what you like. That's what makes you
it's
happy.
what I like.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't know. I can't really explain it. I don't know. It's very black and white with me. There's no gray areas. When people are like, I'm kind of into basketball, like, no, you know, like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
played when I was a kid, and like, I think it's cool. I think LeBron James is cool, but I can't sit there and watch basketball games. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
it's just
like-
not my thing.
Yeah. I worship Michael Jordan because he's so good. I don't know if I've ever watched a Michael Jordan game. But
Right.
like, because I'm the exact same way. Like, here's my
Yeah.
list. It's on my list, or it's not on my list. It's not.
Dude.
I'm cool either way, but like, I'm not watching sports. Like, it's not.
100%.
And like, I don't feel any. I've never felt a need to be like, oh, I should really. People like sports. I should start watching sports. Like,
Right.
like enjoy it. If people like
Right.
it, tell the people to enjoy themselves. I'm busy over here. I mean, I see
Right.
the Chucky hanging up, and I think I'm the exact same way as you. I got horror movies. I got wrestling. I don't really need that much else. I got a studio where I can make my YouTube stuff. I don't need anything else. Like,
Right.
I got my
And that's-
family. Like, I'm good.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine about motorcycles. He's like, dude, it just doesn't make sense to me that like you don't ride motorcycles. I'm like, what? Why? He's like, I don't know. You know, you look like this. I'm like, dude, I'm terrified. Terrified of motorcycles. I'm not getting on a fucking motorcycle.
Yeah.
No, dude, that's not me. You
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah.
I think that's what that's just what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that, like, first of all, anybody that has shame in anything that they actually like or are good at or are passionate about, like, if you have shame over anything you're passionate about, like, you need to drop that immediately. Like, that's not any way to live your life. And if there are people around you that don't get it, like, I've always thought that that's on them for not getting it. Like,
It's true. I don't know what a guilty pleasure is, right? Like,
Yeah.
I always talk about guilty pleasures, right? And to like segue into music, right? And I'll be like, man, that's a guilty pleasure, that song. I'm like, listen, I fucking love pop music.
Mhm.
Love pop music. Pop music is the only way for a person that likes rock and roll to create songs that people like. Or you would just sit there and write riffs all day, you know? Like so it never really made sense to me because a guilty pleasure is really just being terrified of admitting that you like something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think I was like probably 19-ish. I was like in college, and like Avril Lavigne came out. I started listening to Avril Lavigne, and I was like, I think I like this ironically. And then I was listening to it more, and I was like, no, it's not ironically. I just like this, and I just like it. And I need to make a choice right now. Am I okay with me and the fact that I'm into this, or am I not?
Right.
And if I'm not, like, who am I trying to impress? So it was like from that point on, it was like, no, like, I got to listen to me. I like this. This is great. This is fantastic stuff.
Dude, 100%, man. I am obsessed with Lady Gaga. I love Lady Gaga. I think Lady Gaga is probably the best songwriter, entertainer of our generation. And I don't think people really realize that. They always compare her to Madonna. I'm like, she's not, and nothing, not to take away from Madonna, but it's like Lady Gaga, man. She's a songwriter. She creates her music.
Mhm.
She's not like a Frank Sinatra type pop star where there's a team of writers that are just handing her stuff. She created this whole thing. and she knows how to kind of ebb and flow through, you know, the trends, and knows when to strike and pull back. And it's a really unique way of doing what I do for a living, which is play music and try to make a living doing it, because she knows when to pull back. She knows when to strip it all down and bring it back. And I have a lot of respect for her, and I enjoy her music. And there's nothing
Not
guilty or ironic about it, right? It's just,
right.
I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, I'm the same way, because there's a really unique thing about Lady Gaga, which is like in this completely manufactured world of pop music. Like, these are like creations most of the time. There's just this, she's oddly self-made. Like, the whole character and the whole skill set and everything, it's like her creation. This was stuff that, like, the root of it is stuff she was doing in like New York clubs because she thought it was cool. Like, it's not like they found this girl and like turned her into this pop creation. Like, she was doing it.
So check this out about Lady Gaga. I don't know if people realize this. If you look at her body of work, it's really impressive. If you go back to the first single, and that, what is it, like a Paparazzi or Just Dance,
yeah,
right? Which is an incredible pop song. That's what she put out first. Very, very clean. The other music around that time was like TikTok from
Kesha.
Kesha?
Yeah.
Like, that stuff was big at the time, right? So what she just kind of slipped right in there, didn't make too much noise, just like, this is a good club song,
right?
And then she got in the door, and what she did when she was in, which just completely blew the hinges right off.
Yeah, because if you listen to like Paparazzi is such an atypical, like, it's almost like got this Broadway quality to it, like this theatrical way of presenting. Like, Paparazzi is I think pretty far off the beaten path of what was going on in pop music at the time. But you're right, like, Just Dance comes out and it sounds like it's just like, oh, this is just a good dance song. And then it's like it becomes this pop hit, and it's like, well, I got this one for you, and I got that one for you, and I got that one for you. And by the time like Bad Romance comes out, it's just, the game's over.
But by the time you turn around, Lady Gaga has become a like fashion icon.
Yeah.
Just a creative genius, man. Like, it's pretty cool too, because I didn't realize it obviously at the time, but then I kind of saw her story, you know, before she was trying to get there, and she was trying to do it like that New York club scene, you know, with the piano and singer-songwriter, and she wasn't getting anywhere with it. So she's like, you know what? Screw it.
Yeah.
Give them what they want, and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want.
Right. And then once you're in, you're in. But yeah, you know, and I think that's like the story too, like getting back to wrestling, of like our favorite wrestlers are, you see through whatever character they're portraying, wherever they are, like you see through that and see that this is not about the character that was given to them. This is not about the instructions that they're following. The reason that this person clicks in on this level, and the reason this superstar makes me feel a certain way, is because that's them. Like, I see them through what they're doing. They're the ones creating this. They're the ones telling the story in the ring. They're not just following a directive. And I think if you go through, like, I mean, all the greats, you can kind of see that. Everyone kind of, after the Hogan era, you see that, like, these are people that kind of built it, because really every star that they've tried to make themselves after the Hogan era hasn't really clicked. The stars that really click are the ones where you're like, oh, that's really them. Even John Cena, like, at first it felt like it was a creation, and it took years and years and years and years of all of us to be like, I got so much respect for John Cena. That's the real dude. Like, this is the guy who's he cares. Like, he loves this business like we love this business. He's not lying. He's not a creation. He's the man. Like, it took us so long to get there, but we got there because we like to see, you know, it's the real deal when we're watching it.
Well, you know, it's funny, man. I've got a story about, a really, really good friend of mine is MVP.
Oh yeah.
Actually, me and MVP are in the process of doing a music project together.
Well, that's awesome because I know MVP's been like into music forever, but like a lot MVP in terms of being a music fan and like what he wants to do has such an array of interests. Like he loves hardcore. He loves like a ton of different stuff that you wouldn't expect. Like I love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people, if they don't know him or whatnot, they'd be like, what are they going to do together? And exactly, like his favorite music is Bad Brains. And,
Yeah.
you know, like all that New York hardcore stuff. And that's what we're going after. We're going to be doing some like interesting out of the box stuff that I don't think people are going to expect from him. But I've got a good story about him for exactly what you're talking about. I think in pro wrestling, once some of these guys are literally just given the microphone and given the opportunity, they will always rise to the occasion. Like, look at what he's done in the past year. And I'm not just saying because he's a good friend of mine.
No.
The dude has literally put that entire company more or less on his back, from going in and being a commentator to a manager to the idea of the Hurt Business. And the Hurt Business, I mean, I don't want to kind of break that fourth wall too much for him, but I know for a fact that the idea of the Hurt Business, he was already doing that when he was in TNA, and he was bummed out, man, when that plug was pulled with those guys. And he was doing some great stuff there. He was probably doing the best stuff that TNA at the time was doing in years. And that plug was pulled, and he was like, you know what, I'm done. And he would, you know, for the next couple of years, you know, he was kind of, it seemed like figuring out, you know, when the end was coming. And to be able to go into Royal Rumble last year, have his moment with Brock, really only for his son, and then sign a deal to kind of be a backstage producer to where he is today. It's remarkable. And but that's the point of what you're saying is some of these guys, man, if you literally just give them an inch, they'll blow the door wide open, and they'll show. And, you know, I mean, you hear it all the time as wrestling fans, all the greats are themselves dialed up to 10 or 11 or whatever. It's true. I mean, I know MVP very well. That dude is who you're seeing on TV. That's who he is.
Yeah.
You know him as well. It's, you know, it's impressive, man. And I'm sure that's what Steve Austin was. I'm sure that's what The Rock is. You know, these guys have just such like unbelievable charisma and confidence too. There's this like bizarre confidence that professional wrestlers have that nobody else has in entertainment. I don't care what anybody says, and I'll go to bat for pro wrestling all the time when it comes to this as like pure entertainment, because I know, you know, I've known just actors, I've known just musicians, and something about like pro wrestlers that do it well, they somehow put everything in a little compartment in their brain and just go full throttle at all times. Like it's crazy, man. Like I said, like I'm only good at a few things. Like a lot of these guys are really good at every piece of entertainment, and they don't get enough credit.
Yeah, well, because people don't understand like how those shows are actually made, and I think that you're 100% right. And the reason that they have that confidence and the confidence in themselves is because they know that the only way you can be successful in WWE is if you're able to turn it on with a second's notice with no idea what you're doing. Like there are times in WWE where you're told in your ear as you're doing it, we're changing everything. Like we were working on something all day. We're halfway through the thing. And it's like, hey, that thing that we were working on all day, we're doing something different. Here's what we're doing right now. And it's happening right now. And it's like, you have to be able to pull it off in a way that nobody watching knows that anything else was ever planned. And I've watched that. That's just, it's not unique. It's the process. That is every day. Like that is what good WWE superstars are trained to do. So it's like when they get into other areas of entertainment, I don't think people realize that, yeah, like I've been trained to the point that, and I'm speaking, this is them talking, that they've been trained to the point that you can throw anything at them. And that moment, they're going to be able to pull off what you need. And I mean, you're 100% right about MVP. Like this Hurt Business stuff, I interviewed years ago. I interviewed, it was MVP, Low Key, Samoa Joe, and Homicide in studio all at once. Steve Mack set it up, and he was like, hey, these guys want to do an interview all together, and I think it'd be cool. I was like, yeah, like, yes, those four together. And MVP was the one who kind of put forward. He was like, we're the Wu-Tang of wrestling. Like, this is us. And then I saw the Beatdown Clan show up on TNA pretty soon after that, and I was like, oh, shit. Like, that's what this was. Like, he planted the seeds for a group like that in that interview. Then he showed up to TNA, and he did it. And I'm like, that's like, he's doing it. And then the Hurt Business is the evolution of that. Like, I look at that, and I'm like, this is what this guy was planning a decade ago, or however long ago it was, when he was sitting in studio with me. And I'm with you 100%. I marvel every time MVP is on TV when I watch, because I know the same journey that you're talking about. I mean, this guy literally was only signed to do a match in the Rumble, and the same thing Carlito had this year. That's what MVP was signed to do: a match in the Rumble, and then a fun thing for the night after the Rumble, and that's it. And then it was like, hey, want to be a producer? Hey, let's do an MVP interview segment just for fun. Hey, you want to do commentary on main event? Hey, you want to manage this guy? Hey, you want to manage and wrestle? And it's like every time that guy gets a chance to go up to the plate, he just knocks a home run. And he's doing it. He was doing it at a time. I mean, let's be honest. When you go back and you watch what wrestling was 6 months ago, 7-8 months ago, when it was still in the Performance Center and there was nobody there, I think the Hurt Business and Bayley and Sasha Banks were like the two acts that were holding the company up.
100%. And I feel for Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, he's great.
It's such a bummer because he's always going to be known as like the COVID champion, right? Like, yeah, this idea that, I mean, I'd love to see him at Mania this year to kind of at least get something under his belt where he could perform in front of some sort of humans.
Yeah. That's a good question, because you're such a fan. Like, I'm very curious, because for me, when I watched Bobby Lashley win the title on Monday, I feel like I think a lot of the fans that are watching now are fans that have been around for a while. And so, like, they're fans that have been on the journey with Lashley and, like, know that he was brought in as one of these guys with all the potential and never quite reached his potential. And we also, most of us know that he went to TNA and had some of the best stuff. He was better in TNA than he was for his first run in WWE. And, like, to see a guy at this stage in his career, like, at his age, come back and be at his best, not only in terms of the way he looks, but in terms of the way he performs and in terms of the way he portrays the character. Like, this is the best Bobby Lashley has ever been. And, like, I don't know, man, you saw him win the title, and it felt good as a fan. Like, you felt like, yes.
It felt right.
It felt right. And you were like, this guy deserves it. I want this guy to be the champion. So, one level deeper, it's like, you're right. There's another feeling that we have where we're like, we'd love to have Drew McIntyre get that moment at WrestleMania. But as a fan, what do you want Drew McIntyre's moment enough that you want Bobby Lashley to lose the title? Or have we gotten to a point where it's like, you know what? I love Drew, but I want to see Bobby leave WrestleMania with the championship.
I'm with you, man. And it's funny because I think going back to MVP is that kind of guy that he sees 10 steps ahead, right? And understanding like the imagery behind what the Hurt Business is, like just down to him wearing rocking a cane, like
Oh,
little
oh,
things like that,
getting
man.
off the crutch and going to the cane. Like it's so, it's like,
I know him, and I know he was like, no, I need a cane. I need a cane. I need a cane no matter what.
by the way, like that cane just took it from, oh man, he got a knee injury at this point in his career. That sucks, to this is even better. Now he's got a cane. He's better now.
I know. It's wild, dude. So I think when you have a guy like Bobby Lashley is so unbelievably talented and is a physical specimen and all of this like obvious stuff that's going on. But he also has he's in this amazing situation with all these like electric guys around him right now that it is, man. It's Kofi,
Yep.
2 years.
Yeah.
And I say that because there's that like group element that you're able to feed off of each other, which is really important right now in like this COVID era of watching pro wrestling. And that's why I feel for Drew, because Drew doesn't have anybody to bounce anything off.
Yeah. And you also believe in everybody in the group, right? Like you don't love just Kofi, you love New Day. And like as a fan, like even if the Hurt Business, I fully believe that if there were audiences in the crowd, there's no way they would have been able to keep the Hurt Business heels. Like no way. They would have, over the summer, they would have turned babyface by now, because you just can't. They're the coolest thing on the show.
Yeah.
But I think that when you look at who's in that group too, it's like we all can recognize, even if we don't know the depths to it, I think any real fan can recognize MVP is playing at another level right now. Bobby Lashley is playing at another level right now. We finally are getting something out of Shelton Benjamin. Like we've heard how talented this guy is for so long, and we've kind of seen glimpses of it, but he's never, ever reached his potential. We're finally seeing this out of Shelton Benjamin. And even Cedric Alexander, like you're watching, it wasn't that long ago that you're watching Cedric Alexander kind of disappear from Raw, and as a fan you're like, I wish that guy would get a shot. Like that guy is so good. So now you're seeing Cedric Alexander play at that level, and like you want the Hurt Business to succeed. You want the Hurt Business to have all the titles. Like you want the picture that we have now, I feel like it's the picture that fans actually want. Right.
I mean, they're feeding off of each other, which is I think what happens in any sort of faction, you understand it very fast, whether it works or it doesn't work, right?
Yep.
There's possibly there may be a weak link in a lot of these factions.
Yeah.
That's usually when they fall apart really fast. When you're talking about like the Hurt Business, you're talking about the Shield, I mean, you're talking about New Day. They're on a different level. And I think at the end of the day, the Hurt Business coming out of this COVID lockdown era of professional wrestling, going into hopefully in the next 6 months, really being able to have open arenas, we might see something that we didn't really expect, because they're gonna fucking explode, man. They're gonna explode. You have an arena filled with people that have been watching these four guys just tear it up for the last year, and finally they can let loose. I mean, yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm just interested to see WrestleMania.
Yeah, I am too, because not only do you have that stuff going on Raw, but then over on SmackDown, it's just like within the last month or two, they've turned a corner on so many guys. Like, first of all, I can't wait to hear how people react to Roman Reigns. Like, this version of Roman Reigns is just like every single week, even this week on SmackDown, just his promo with Daniel Bryan, it's just goosebumps good every single time. And like all these, like, you can tell every time he talks, there's like little bits of storytelling that, like, that little quote, that's the long-term thing. Like him going like, I don't need wrestling needs me. You're like, yeah, that's the story we're telling. And he goes, you need me, Brian. And I'm like, yeah, that's the story we're telling. And he goes, Paul needs me. And I'm like, that's going to come back.
That's going to come
back. That's going to come back later. Like that's, and I'm just, I just love it so much. So, but at the same time, like, as Roman is finally taking that spot as like really, truly the best wrestler in the world right now. Like the guy who my eyes are locked on more than anybody else. Cesaro has this new wind underneath him where it's like, it's the same feeling as like Lashley, where you're like, finally, like this could really be happening. And like, dude, I know that some people love it and some people hate it. I'm in the love it category. The stuff Apollo Crews has been doing, to me, next level. I think it's so good. I feel like it's exactly what Apollo needs. I love that Apollo Crews has this character, that there are elements of truth in it, that he's sinking his teeth into, and it's like, yeah, God bless Apollo Crews. Even when he was United States champion, it's like they announce he's coming out, and you're like, okay, he's going to have a good match, but do you care about Apollo Crews? And like, not really, no. But now,
because it was always tough with a guy like him. I always thought of Apollo Crews for the first year he was on the main roster as Rocky Maivia.
Yes, yes.
Like there's nothing wrong with it. I should love this guy. Everybody should love this guy, but I just don't care. I don't hate him. I just don't.
Exactly.
care.
You're like, he's good. I see it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, that guy should not be in WWE. It's like, yeah, no, he's incredible. He's incredible. Look how strong that man is. He's unbelievable. And then you're like, but he's just smiling, and I don't understand why, and I don't care. And then like when hints started dropping and the Paul Heyman stuff started happening, and then he comes out and he's dipping into his heritage and everything, I'm like, this is real life. Like this is cool. This is cool. And to the point where like I realized it this week on SmackDown. He didn't even have a match. He just came out to the ring to cut a promo, and it's like it's a 180 from where we were before. When Apollo Crews gets introduced, I'm like, whoa. Like, everybody, like, be quiet. I want to hear what he's got to say. Like, I care. I care so much because there's development and progress, and I'm like, this is interesting now.
That's the beautiful thing, though, about pro wrestling is that you see these talents that are just unbelievable. And you're like, it's not there yet. It's not there yet. It's not there yet. And sadly, I think just in life in general, you kind of have to get beaten down a bit. You have to fail a few times to kind of figure out where you fit. And I think that's exactly where he's at today. And even a guy like Cesaro, man, like kind of talking about what we're talking about with the Hurt Business, where a lot of those guys, they're feeding off of each other. I think Cesaro he's almost had to feed off of other people his entire career, when all he needed was to be himself by himself. No gimmicks, not meaning like the swing and the this and the that, and with Sheamus, and you're gonna put him here and you get like, just let the guy be the guy.
Yeah. Because it's like you can give him a tearaway tuxedo, you can turn him into James Bond. You can do the bar. You can do whatever you want. But ultimately, he's one of the rare exceptions where it's like, just put him in a pair of trunks and have him go out there and be like, hey, in case you guys didn't hear, I'm the best in the world and I'm so strong. And it's like, yeah, right, prove it. And then he goes out there and proves it. And you're like, oh my God, he's so strong and he's the best in the world. Like, he's incredible.
Right. And he's funny, man.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a guy like Rusev, when Rusev was Rusev.
Yeah.
You started seeing that with him, where there's like this. I still don't really understand why they cut him loose when they cut him loose. I feel like he was starting to really come into his own, after the monster Rusev, stuff. And I think that's kind of where Cesaro is. Like he's finding himself and not getting hung up on the fact that Vince doesn't like the way he does promos because it's kind of broken English or whatever that weird comment was years back. I think he's falling into this organic role that I think he's thriving, and I hope that he has real staying power, because I don't know, Cesaro's there's this vibe that I get sometimes that, like, I look at his character, I'm like, I feel like they're gonna let him go. And at any point, I feel like they're going to cut him loose.
Mm-hmm. And you get worried.
You get worried,
Yeah.
man. I mean, I don't know. I love watching that guy live. He's
Yeah.
one of my favorite wrestlers to watch when you're in the arena.
What do you miss more? Do you miss the like big WWE type arena wrestling shows, or do you miss like the smaller local New Jersey independent shows? Because I've seen you at both. I've seen you at both.
Oh man, dude, I miss everything, man. Um, I miss everything. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I would say I miss like personally, I miss playing music in big venues like that. I miss playing shows in small venues like that. I miss watching wrestling in small venues like that, and I miss going to, honestly, I actually don't really like going to WrestleManias. I'll be perfectly honest. I think it's one of those things where I get too lost in all the other bullshit that's going around, and I usually miss the actual matches.
Yeah.
I always find myself like trying to find a TV just going in the corner and watch it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, because you don't realize like it's like too much birthday. Like you're just overstimulated. And you're like, I can't, because I like, you just make this list. You're like, I'm going to go to WrestleCon. I'm going to go to this indie show in the morning. I'm going to hit up Access, and I'm going to watch the Cruiserweight. I'm going to do 205 Live at Access, and then I'm going to go watch TakeOver. I'm going to go watch WrestleMania, but I'll be there for the pre-show. And you're like, you get to Sunday, and you're like, I can't, bro. I'm going to go to Hall of Fame. It's going to be great. I'm going to watch Hillbilly Jim for 16 hours. It's going to be awesome. And you're just, you don't realize, you're like, fatigue has set in. And sometimes I like watching wrestling silently and quietly by myself.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Like there's this clip that I get made fun of, and it started again. I only bring it up because I've kind of forgotten about it. But then WWE like tweeted it out on an anniversary or whatever. I don't remember why they tweeted it out.
About it.
Yeah. Yeah. Where it's like, I think it was TakeOver, maybe TakeOver Dallas. Maybe it was WrestleMania 32 weekend. And it was the debut of Nakamura. It was Nakamura versus Sami Zayn at that TakeOver. And it's this amazing match. And like people are losing their minds while that match is happening. But I was burnt by that point. Like I'm doing interviews. I'm trying to get as much done as humanly possible. And so like I'm just like I'm acting like I'm in like like I'm watching a New Japan show. Like I'm sitting there like quietly, like I'm not doing any hand gestures. I'm just sitting there like almost like sullenly just watching the match in my seat. And like for some reason that's the moment that they decide to take a shot of the wide crowd, and like everybody's like going nuts, and you just see me and people know it's me. And I'm just sitting there, just like almost like bummed out, like I'm pouting. And people are like, "What's wrong with you? Do you know what's going on?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I look like when I'm enjoying it. That's me enjoying this. Leave me alone. Leave me alone and let me enjoy this."
Yeah, actually, I got a question. Let me ask you this. Because we've been friends for years before you even started working with WWE, has that kind of, I don't want to say poison the water hole, but has it a bit, like in terms of like seeing too much behind the curtain? Because for example, for me, I've been lucky enough to like be in a few segments here and there on like with like JBL and Michael Cole, and the JBL and Cole show.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So like some weird like little backstage things here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going into it being terrified. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know if I want to see how the sausage is made.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's gonna ruin it for me, which of course it didn't. But
right.
Has it because you're making the sausage at this point sometimes.
Well, no, I mean, short answer is no, but like I'm also like I could see where that could happen. So I specifically like I don't allow myself, like I kind of stay conscious of like just go and be a fan. Like from the beginning of doing those kickoff shows, I was like, all you need to do is one. If you do one kickoff show, no one can ever take that away. Like all you need to do is go home and be like, oh my God, like I went from being a fan to being on the kickoff show. Like it'd be great to do 100 of them, but if you do one, you've done it. Like it's you did it, and like so I don't go in with this sort of like goal of like, oh, I got to make more of it, and I got to make sure they see me, and I got to make it about myself and everything. I'm like, no. I got to go in. I'm here because I'm such a fan. So like to go in and lose that is like I'm losing the reason that I'm here. So I try not to pay any attention to anything that doesn't have to do with me specifically. Like I'll pay close attention to the stuff that I'm doing. But other than that, like if I have the opportunity to sit in a locker room and like get to hear JBL or Booker T or one of those guys telling stories and just laugh, like if I can sit there and Booker T and Rey Mysterio are just shooting the shit and I can just kind of be a fly on the wall, like no part of me is jumping in and being like, actually guys, if I could add, I'm just like, this is what you want. Like just be a fly on the wall and enjoy this. And I do that. And I also just about every show, especially the big ones, I like go out, I just sneak out and go out into the crowd and watch the show, you know, from some like corner. Like people, you could find me like, you know, I find some corner in the arena. Like when Nakamura won that Royal Rumble, I was in the audience jumping up and down with everybody else. Like every WrestleMania, I'm in the crowd somewhere. I'm always, and that's, you know, when Edge returned at the Royal Rumble in 2019 in the crowd, like I always try to go like, look, dude, it's not just, oh, cool, I get to be on the pre-show. Like you got one of those all access passes. Yeah. Use it. Go out onto the floor. Go out, like, go watch the show. Go be a fan. And you know, I'm in a unique position where I can do that. I don't have I'm still just me. I'm just a fan who happens to be on the radio, so they let me be on a kickoff show. But it's not like anybody's.
That's an awesome way of looking at it because I mean, you could easily become jaded. But I think we've had this conversation a little bit over text where, you know, you're able to kind of pop in and out, which is still nice. You know, it's not it's not something that will ever stress you out. Like, oh my God, I can't get this done. I got, you know, all right, we got to go from here to here to here. And then we got to go here Monday. And then I got to get home and fly here. Like you're still able to just, okay, cool. I'm going to fly in. I'm going to do my piece. I'm going to fly home and then go to my job.
Right. Yeah. And that's really important. And like, you know, I get super stressed out before the pre-shows and stuff because I don't want to let anybody down. And like, it still boggles my mind that anybody would ask me to do those things. So like, you know, you get that. And that's really like, that's the stress of it. It's like, I want to do well so that the people who put me there are like, they look good for doing that. Like, that's the whole thing. But I mean, the beauty of it is after the pre-show, it's like I could just go back to being a fan. Like just be a fan and like don't worry about anything else other than the fact that you get to go to all these pay-per-views. It's amazing, you know?
Yeah. Dude, you might have the best gig out of anybody.
I'm like, you know, and that's the other thing. You can't be like, oh man, if only I could be doing this, if only I could be doing that. It's like, no, dude, like nobody else is walking out into the crowd and just being like, well, of course I'm in the crowd. I'm a fan. And yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, you're a fan. Go out. And
dude, I mean, it's true. So that's where, like, for me, you know, with music, my backup plan when I was a kid was to cut hair. Like I thought that's how I was going to have to make money, give music a shot, you know. Long and short, obviously, you know, Gaslight became my career. And as the years kind of compiled and being on the road for so many years, I think, you know, for myself and the rest of us, it's why we really took a hiatus. Like it became too much. And, you know, you get burnt out, you get tired, and all of us just kind of wanted to do something else for a bit. And that's where I dove deep into, you know, the barbering industry. And really, you know, I started a company where kind of actually, you know, a lot about that because you're at WWE with the Maestros guys.
Yeah.
So that's where
they're the ones who literally convinced me to grow a beard. The guy who runs the Maestros was like, I mean, I didn't realize that he tries to convince everybody to grow a beard. Like that's what he does. Every guy. He's like, you know, you should, your face structure and everything. Like, but when he did it to me, I was like,
I sell beard products.
Like, I'm building a customer base, but I was like, oh, I guess he just knows aesthetics. I should definitely grow a beard.
Exactly. That's where, you know, for me, I would always cut my hair on the road, cut other guys and other bands and my band and whatnot. And I would set up like a little barbershop backstage. And I was like, this is crazy. This is something that needs to be here all the time. So that's where I started that with called Idle Hand Collective, and we basically we go to the NHL awards and all sorts of music festivals backstage, and we basically do the exact it's funny, the Maestro setup, they kind of do it for a promo, as a promo thing with WWE, and give you guys beard stuff and whatnot, but that we kind of do that throughout the country, and it kind of sucks obviously now with COVID. It's
right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was nuts, man. Like when I started that I was like, I need to just step away from playing music for a second for a living, because I don't want to become jaded over the whole thing, over the entire, from soup to nuts. And I think now, which is nice, that's where, after a couple of years, me and my guitar player from Gaslight, we were able to kind of just, we were like, we did a bunch of shows with Gaslight, and we were like, you know what, let's do something together separately from Gaslight. And that's kind of where we're at now, which is nice. It's like a rejuvenated piece right now, which is awesome, which the new band's called Forgivers, actually.
Forgivers?
Yeah, Forgivers, yeah. And March 12th, which is a Friday, which is, I don't know when this is coming out.
Yeah,
this Friday.
This Friday, I think. Yeah, this Friday.
We got our first single coming out.
That's awesome.
Which will be out, yeah. It'll be out on all the streaming sites, Spotify, wherever you get, your music. YouTube, we got the video dropping that day as well.
That's great, man. Yeah, I think that everybody should go and like make the first single a hit, because if there's enough of us wrestling fans that are listening to Forgivers, then you guys will get to be as big as Bad Bunny, and then you can get next year on the road to WrestleMania and maybe be in a tag team with MVP or something like that.
That would be, dude, me and MVP years ago, we had an idea, like a reality show idea, that I would teach him how to play guitar or bass or whatever, some instrument. He wants to really learn how to play bass, and he would teach me how to wrestle. And then we would like showcase it, and and then at the end of it, he would play a show and I would be in a wrestling match. But that's the funny thing is, like, I never wanted to be a wrestler ever. I'm not like into the idea of like working out, and I'm not into the idea of like getting hurt or any of that.
Yeah. The whole you forget that you have to kind of be an athlete to be a wrestler. You know what I mean? Like you have to eat a certain way and work out and have a lot of discipline. Right. And you're like, whoa, I don't want to do all that. I just want to like cut a promo and jump through a table or something.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is gonna be way harder for me than it is for you. I'll show you a few chords. You can jump around stage and have fun. I'm gonna have to like get in shape and
to do just the basics, just to learn how to like run the ropes and do a flat back bump. You still kind of have to be in shape.
Nah,
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Oh man. Yeah, exactly. All of our wrestling community, go check us out. Forgivers.
Yeah.
Instagram and Forgivers Music is our Instagram.
Awesome.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. Yeah, just nice classic rock and roll.
There's not enough rock and roll these days. We got to support rock and roll. We got to bring it back, man.
Exactly, man. I mean, that's, it's cliche to say, but it is rock and roll is, I don't know, it's like the heartbeat of music, and everybody wants a piece of rock and roll, but it doesn't seem like anybody wants to play rock and roll these days.
Right. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you can't just, you got to maintain
be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and not play rock and roll. It's like,
right.
Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're getting to the point where it's one thing to have some people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that are not rock and roll. We're getting to the point where there's going to be nobody left, where it's going to be only like no rock and roll whatsoever going into the Hall of Fame because there's no new bands.
Oh my dude, so not to get all crazy and jaded about it, but I think it's like 3 years in a row now. The Grammys haven't televised the best rock album or best rock performance or any of that, because every single time it's been like the lowest rated segment.
Oh, come on. Look,
it's
I mean,
terrible.
people feel like, well, you got Dave Grohl and you got Jack White, so you should be fine, right? And you're like, they've been around forever. Like, we gotta have more. There's gotta be a genre.
I know. It's like, come on, Dave Grohl. People forget about that too. It's like, dude, the Foo Fighters and Dave Grohl, that was a different generation. They're still doing it,
Right.
but generationally, dude, he was the freaking drummer of Nirvana 30 years ago, man.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like Jack White, still another piece. He's part of this generation, but again, like the White Stripes, they got big in early 2000s.
Yeah,
20 years ago.
the White Stripes are real close to popping up on classic rock stations.
Right.
You know, which is
25 years, right?
Yeah, we don't want to admit that. It's wild to me, but like, it's true. You gotta create the future, and I guess that's what the Forgivers are doing, man. So Forgivers music is all the social media, Instagram, and everything. This Friday, the first single from the Forgivers will be out. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, the whole deal. I know I'll be listening. I can't wait to hear it and support this. Here's the thing. I don't want people coming around when Alex has his project that he's going to do with MVP. I don't want people coming around like they've been around, right? So like you got to get on the bandwagon now. You got to get on the Forgivers bandwagon and then go back through Alex's catalog. But start with the Forgivers, go back through the catalog. That way you're already a fan when the MVP stuff comes out, right? That makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
Of course, anytime, man. It's always good talking to you, dude. I appreciate it.
Of course, brother. Love you, dog.